Welcome to By the Numbers to bring to you all the hottest fantasy updates of the week. Will Jacob Trouba be the man in Winnipeg? Will the Seattle Seahawks maintain Tom Brachett's high-powered Patriots offense? I'm Robert Bellardi, alongside Devin Emery and Nelson Santo. Gentlemen, we'll begin with the NHL discussion for today. Jacob Trouba will sign for 2 years, $6 million. A lot of fantasy players have picked up on him this week. Is this the best option for these guys? Nelson, we'll start with you.
I'm going to say no. The reason is just because for Winnipeg, last season he had 21 points in 81 games. Very weak for a defender. Let's just compare him to Sami Vatanen. Pretty similar players. Sami had 38 points plus 8 and had 20 penalty minutes. Jacob Trouba has played 3 seasons in the NHL, has been trending downward. He also hasn't played a game since the World Cup of Hockey, so meaning that others in the league are ahead of him. He's still trying to get his feet under him. He's been a healthy scratch most of this week. And as a young player, I feel like this time that he's missing, he's losing on experience that he could be gaining.
Devin? I gotta disagree with you there, man. I'm sorry. Winnipeg is a really good team. He signed that big contract that he was looking for all year. He's been holding out. He played 81 games last year, finished with 21 points. And I just feel like he's a good player to pick up if you're looking for 62 penalty minutes he got last year and 133 shots on goal, So if you're looking for a player to pick up in free agency that will get you penalty minutes and shots on goal, I think he's a perfect fit. He's going to be going to a really good Winnipeg team that are playing very well in the past few weeks. They're now up to 7th in the Western Conference. Who thought of this at the beginning of the season? They're a very strong team, overperforming, and I just feel like he can provide in a few categories that you might be missing. He was also a plus 10 last season, which is very good for a defender on a bad Winnipeg team last year.
Yeah, I have to say he's a good defenseman. I'm going to have to take Nelson's side on here. I'm going to have to disagree with this whole Jacob Trouba thing, and here's why. Trouba, again, does not put up too many points with the goals and assists. Once again, like just Devin said, I'm going to reiterate, 21 points last season. Not a stable defenseman you want in depth going through with your fantasy team. The only section I see him actually developing would be the penalty minutes. He had 62 penalty minutes last season. In terms of players, in terms of like PK Subban, your Shea Webbers, your Drew Doughties, I feel he's not up to par with those high-level defensemen. He will not be the number 1 defenseman in Winnipeg. And to compare him with another player who I would rather have Colton Parayko of St. Louis. He put up 29 penalty minutes. He was a plus 28 last year, gentlemen. That's very high for a defenseman, very good statistic. And I really like how he had 24 assists and 9 goals. So we're now to move on to an open discussion. Now, guys, we can shoot and fire back and forth of what we really feel about the Trouba deal, how we see it either affecting Winnipeg as a team and affecting fantasy players with their team, and who would you rather have?
Well, listen, he's not going to be your number 1 defenseman. Let's get that straight. We all know that.
Absolutely. Of course.
But as a number 3, maybe number 4 in your defensive spot, he's a very good player to pick up. He's been added 133 times just alone today, and it's going up. 25% owned so far. He signed his big contract. He's ready to play now. If he gets traded away from Winnipeg, his stats will increase even more, I believe.
I don't really see that happening. I believe this specific salary that they are giving him is meant for a trade. They know that Trouba may not want to play with the Winnipeg Jets for a long period of time. They understand that he wants to be the number 1 defenseman, but behind Dustin Byfuglien, Tyler Myers, it may just not work out. Nelson, any thoughts?
I just think for 133 shots, he had, 21 points? It's kind of weak.
But if you're looking just to add in a couple categories, we're not talking about a player that's going to be your whole defense. We're talking about a player that will give you added penalty minutes and added shots on goal. 133 shots on goal is a very high number for a defenseman. That's very good.
Continuing with the NHL fantasy news, Nail Yakupov has been scratched for now a few times for the St. Louis Blues. Gentlemen, at the beginning of this year, Yakupov had some hype around him, moving to St. Louis, a fresh start, a new beginning. How do fantasy players approach this situation?
Well, you don't approach him at all. You don't. You stay far away because he's proven time and time again, like he just can't handle the big stage. Even at Edmonton, where they were a bad team, he didn't provide them anything. He was under 40 points in every single season. He was always a minus player. He's not someone you can trust on your team.
Absolutely. Nelson?
Yeah, completely agree. Just this season, he's played, 12 games? He has 4 points, and he's -1. He's got a point every 3 games, so ignore him. Stats are horrible. Stay away from him.
Absolutely, and I take that stand as well. I do agree. For fantasy, Nail Yakupov is not someone you want to have on your team. For his seasons, he was -35 in his 2014-2015 season. That's been his lowest so far. He's been a minus ever since he came into the NHL, and he just doesn't provide enough for his team.
And listen, he's playing on the St. Louis Blues, who are a good team.
Great team, man.
But
Yep.
he's playing on the third line with Dmitry Yaskin and Paul Stastny. 2 players that are not going to help him in any way. So I just, you can't, there's always going to be a better player to pick up other than Nail Yakupov. He's been in trouble his whole career. He was taken in the first round by Edmonton, and he hasn't proven it. What do you got? How about you?
Nelson?
Well, it's his second team, and obviously it's not the coaches or the players he's playing with. It's obviously
the change
it's
of
him.
scenery
It's
didn't help.
got to be
The
him.
change of scenery didn't help him
I
at all,
completely
and I
agree.
thought it would have.
That's my
A
exact
lot of people
thought.
I
the change
did.
of
I did
scenery.
come into the season thinking, okay, Yakupov had a few bad years. Fine. He had 8 goals last year, 15 assists, 23 points. Terrible, but you know what? A change of scenery may have helped him, and it just turns out right now it's not working out. So continuing on down the conversation, we're now going to move on to NBA. Moving over here to James Harden. He's been moved to point guard this year for the Houston Rockets, and ever since that decision has been made, he's been exceptional in that position. Nelson, how huge of a move is this for a lot of fantasy guys?
I think it's a great move, big pickup. I think the reason why he's doing well is because of Mike D'Antoni. As you can know, he coached Steve Nash into a 2-time MVP player of the league. Obviously, James Harden's putting up triple-double, so I think it's a huge pickup for fantasy players right now.
Devin?
Oh man, I love James Harden. I love me some James Harden. He's one of the most exciting players to watch in basketball right now. I picked him 2nd overall in my fantasy, and I'm not looking back. This guy has been averaging 30.6 points per game, 13 rebounds, and 7.8 assists. That's incredible. That's better than Steph Curry's numbers last season when he got MVP, and Steph Curry had an unbelievable year. So I'm not saying he's going to be MVP this year, James Harden. We got to take a break on that, but he is providing everything for Houston right now.
I do take his stand, and I agree as well. James Harden moving to point guard shows that he's actually capable of expanding his game of basketball. He's shown that he can assist. He's shown that he can rebound a little bit and get involved in the play. When he was just a shooting guard, guys, we only saw him score. He was only given the ball. Now he commands the ball, and it's just changing his game. So for fantasy players, we can definitely see a big intake for this. In terms of moving forward in the NBA season with different matchups, how big of an impact can Harden have in terms of like free throw percentage, field goal percentage, guys? Nelson?
I think it's huge. Well, he's running the show in Houston, so
But is he MVP material?
Potentially.
potential. Depends if he can keep up his numbers, right?
We'll see.
You just said his numbers are better than
He's
Curry's.
having an unbelievable year. This is we're only a couple weeks into the season, right? So we don't want to get carried away. But this week he single-handedly took Houston to beat the Spurs, a very good Spurs team, of course, as they always are, and a very good defensively Spurs team. He had 24 points, 12 rebounds, and 15 assists, which is unbelievable.
Yep.
But
He's
we'll
also-
see. We'll see how time goes.
He's also roughly 80% from the free throw line, which
Yeah.
is another good statistic to have. You want your point guard. Patrick Beverly wasn't cutting it for them. So
No,
to
he can't play with another point guard.
No, I think James Harden has to be running
has
the
to be the
show.
main
He
guy.
needs to be in full command. That's when he's at his best. And they were
But is he better than a Russell Westbrook?
That's debatable. We're gonna have to see that.
Yeah.
Westbrook has been groomed as a point guard throughout his career. James Harden is been shifting within different positions. We'll have to see.
Yeah, we'll see
moving
how the
on.
season goes.
Also with NBA, guys, the Lakers are hot. We
crazy.
can all advocate and say that we did not see this one coming. Which player would you rather have on your team? Devin, we'll start with you.
This might not be the most popular pick, but I'm going to go with Julius Randle, and I'm going to tell you why. He's ranked 59th in Yahoo Fantasy right now, which is amazing for a Lakers player. They haven't had this in such a long time. He's been added 113 times, and it's only going up. This is alone, today alone, sorry. He's been averaging, he's on fire right now. He's scored at least 15 points in 4 straight games. He's averaging 15.4 points, 8.6 rebounds, and 2.8 assists over the past 5 games. This man is on fire. He's becoming a leader for this young Lakers team.
Nelson.
Don't get me wrong, the kids are the future, but right now it's all about Lou Williams. He's leading the team with scoring and I believe steals. He's got 15.9 points, 1.8 steals per game. So I think right now it's Lou Williams who's leading this team. He's got that experience. But the kids are the future. Don't get me wrong. But right now, Lou Williams.
Well, speaking of
It's
the
all
kid,
about the kids, eh? It's all about the
Speaking
kids.
of the kid, I'm going to go with D'Angelo Russell. I think he's obviously the best option for the Lakers right now. He's averaging 15.6 points a game, 3 rebounds, 4.7 assists. He has a career total of 1,054 points ever since coming into the NBA. I think he's going to surpass that total. Sorry, not in the NBA, 1,054 points last season. I think he's going to surpass that total. He's the leading guy for this Lakers team. He commands everything. And he is 93% owned in fantasy. So if you did make that great option in choosing him, you've set yourself for the rest of the season.
But with D'Angelo Russell, you get a lot of backlash with what happened last year, as we all know.
With Nick Young,
can
correct?
you trust him to be that player for you over Julius Randle? Because Julius Randle, he doesn't have any off the court issues. He handles his business on the court. As you can see, he's averaging they're leading. He's fourth in points for the Lakers, first in rebounds, and first in blocks. He's leading this young team.
Well, that's fine. I mean, off the court doesn't really matter. On the court is where it matters. But Nelson, what do you think? Final thoughts?
I'm going to have to say that like the kid's the future, right? Obviously, like I said. But off the field, they're kids. They're going to learn with experience. Obviously, the stuff that happened last year, I'm pretty sure won't happen again this
I
year.
still don't believe his teammates trust him, though.
That's, I understand where you're coming from with off the court. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not going to be too ridiculous with it, but it does. I see with D'Angelo Russell, I think he has good chemistry with his teammates. I think even with Julius Randle, even with Lou Williams, I think he's got very good chemistry. I just see him being the man going forward for the Lakers.
And is Lou Williams going to keep it up like he's been for the rest of the season? Like last year, he started off really well for the Lakers, but he kind of died out a bit, I find.
Yeah, but last year he still had Kobe, right? Kobe running the show.
true,
He's
too.
not there right now. They need that experience.
We'll have to see going forward, I guess. So moving over to the NFL and then the final topic of the day, it is the Super Bowl rematch. The Seattle Seahawks will travel over to Foxborough to face off against the New England Patriots. Of course,
Can't wait.
Devin is a hardcore New England fan, and surely he's
can't
going to be
wait.
waiting for this one. So we're going to start with you, Devin. I mean, who would be the sleeper this week? We already can say that, Tom Brady or Russell Wilson would be obviously great fantasy points. Well, how would this work out for a lot of the other areas of the field? Where do you see this going?
It might be an unpopular pick, but I'm going to go with James White. James White, over the season, at the beginning of the season, he started off very inconsistent, but the past 3 weeks, he's had at least one touchdown in 2 of the 3 games, and he's almost gotten over. He's gotten at least 9.5 fantasy points. In 2 out of the last 3 weeks. I'm sorry. He's great coming out of the backfield as a receiving running back, and Seattle does struggle with that, as you saw last weekend against Buffalo with LaShawn McCoy. Also, with Deion Lewis making his return, maybe not this week, probably not this week, sorry, but maybe the following week, James White is a 1-week pickup guy because Lewis can do everything James White does and better. But Belichick noted on Friday it would take somebody pretty good to be better than James White because
Okay.
James White is playing fantastic right now.
Of course. Nelson.
I'm going with Patriots running back LeGarrette Blount. He's got 609 yards, 9 touchdowns. He's on pace for 1,200 yards and 18 touchdowns. The Patriots are 8th in the league in rushing. The Seahawks are ranked 12th in defense against rushing. Obviously, I don't think the Seahawks defense is what it used to be. So I just don't see them holding out Blount out of the end zone at all on Sunday.
Blunt, he always finds a way in.
Well, I'm going to actually take the Seahawks defense, and I'm going to take them as a sleeper here for this particular game. I think they understand that the Patriots are going to use LeGarrette Blount, and they understand that the Seahawks defense is very shaky. But this is where I feel that Pete Carroll's going to take a twist, and he's going to be more aggressive on the running game against the Patriots and shut them down. I mean, they are 9th in allowing defensive yards. They are 12th in allowing rushing yards, so they can adapt. They are still a very good defense. They have fallen off a little bit since the Legion of Boom days, but I still feel that they're going to be a sleeper on Sunday.
Sometimes I don't even know how we're friends. You know that?
I wonder that sometimes too.
How can you pick the Seattle Seahawks defense when they're playing against New England Patriots? This Patriots team is so good right now.
Is this a biased thing to say here? I mean,
This Patriots
It's a
team
little
is
bit
so
biased.
good.
I think we're leaning more towards
This Seattle defense, they have not been the same at all.
No.
They've been awful this season at times. And with Tom Brady at his full power right now, and Gronk is healthy, and Martellus Bennett is healthy, and Edelman is healthy, everything is coming together right now for the Patriots. So there's no way I find Seattle defense.
We'll have to
playing
wait
well
till
this week.
Sunday when I shoot you a text message in win or lose situation. And we're going to have to find out from there. Nelson, final thoughts on the whole Seahawks-Patriots game. What do you think is going to happen?
I think the Patriots are gonna go crazy on the Seahawks.
Thank you.
Okay.
And this is coming from a Green Bay fan.
Yeah, you guys. I know I'm a Packer fan too, but you guys always take 2-1. What are you gonna do? So, Devin, you wrote yesterday a few players that you feel that are going to be sitting, and that fantasy players should be playing. And if you don't mind, let's elaborate on your whole.
So
article.
I'm going to give you the top, maybe 1 or 2 sits for this week for NFL Week 10. I'm going to start with Ben Roethlisberger. One major reason for his poor play last week might be his knee injury, and that's still healing. Big Ben went down on October 17th for surgery for a torn meniscus. And there are a few optimistic projections that said he could return after maybe 4 weeks. But suddenly, only after missing 20 days, Roethlisberger was back in the spotlight for the Steelers. I believe it's a fair question to ask whether he was given enough time to recover or not. Roethlisberger nearly went under 20 fantasy points for the 3rd time in 5 games last week before he saved himself with a rushing touchdown. He also completed less than 56% of his passes 4 times in 7 games. He's going up against a tough Dallas defense this week that allows under 17 fantasy points for quarterbacks. Next one I'm going to say is Christian Michael for the Seattle Seahawks. His window of opportunity is closing very fast because Thomas Rawls is coming back next week. Although Michael has provided some good weeks for fantasy owners, his inconsistency makes him hard to start this week, especially going against a very good Patriots defense, as we talked about. They only allow 4.1 yards per rush for running backs over the season. Over his past 6 games, Michael has only averaged 3.7 yards per rush and 53.5 rushing yards per game. He also had to share snaps with Seattle's other running backs, and things don't look like they're going to change against the Patriots. Fantasy owners should be looking in the waiver wire to find a very better option. So a couple players to start this week. It's not all bad, guys. Don't worry. Darren Sproles for the Philadelphia Eagles. I like Sproles a lot, and I picked him up in my fantasy league as well. It looks like Sproles is finally being truly appreciated for his in the city of brotherly love. Head coach Doug Peterson has been using Sproles in every facet of the game, getting 16 touches last week. Sproles rewarded his coach by turning those touches into 57 rushing yards and 14 receiving yards. Expect Sproles to get more touches this week and may get more action than his partner Ryan Matthews. Doug Peterson said that Sproles is the primary running back, and although Atlanta has proven to be a good team against the run, they do have trouble containing running backs on the dump-offs and screen plays, which is where Sproles has excelled his entire career. My next one is J.J. Nelson of the Arizona Cardinals. After Michael Floyd became one of the biggest busts of the season, along came J.J. Nelson, out of nowhere. The small wide receiver became an instant hit in week number 8 for the Cardinals against the Patriots, where he hauled in 8 catches for 79 yards and 2 touchdowns. Nelson not only provides quickness and sharp route running, but he has great hands as well, which proved too much to handle for the Panthers last week, or 2 weeks ago, I'm sorry. Nelson will more likely be the number 2 option behind Larry Fitzgerald, of course, but will still be able to get a lot of touches from Carson Palmer. This week, the Cardinals face a very dreadful defense in the 49ers that has given up the 5th most fantasy points per game to wide receivers. Expect a big week from him. He's going to have a big week, boys.
So that would be all for By the Numbers this week. For Devin Imrie and Nelson Santo, I'm Robert Pilardi. Thanks for tuning in.